Thank you so much for that. It's so wonderful to be here, and it's I'm trying to not focus on the pressure of being the last speaker and bringing it all home. No worries. I know that this afternoon there have been a couple of presentations that honestly probably have increased your blood pressure a little bit, maybe caused a little bit of worry. And I just want to let you know that I actually going to double down on that. So, so be ready. Yogi Berra said the future ain't what it used to be. So I wanted to start with something to ask you to do something that I hope you do often, and that's to use your imagination, maybe even in places you don't necessarily want to go to, but some thoughts. So imagine for a minute that there was a world where dogs who came to old folks' homes or did hospital visits or things would never have a possibility of a bite wound or an infectious disease or any concern like that. Imagine if you lived in a gigantic city on the 93rd floor of some gigantic building, and you or your children, whoever, always wanted to have a golden retriever or a German shepherd, and you could. Imagine if you needed a service dog, and you were told in the past that it was going to take 4 or 5 years to get one. What if I could get you one by Friday? What if we could have dogs that go out and get in harm's way, but we wouldn't have to put our live dogs, our real dogs, in harm's way? And what if you had your best friend who was warm and soft and moves just like a real dog, breathed out warm air, looked at you like that, gave you kisses? What if your best friend never died? In 1993, Tom Selleck did a voiceover for a series of commercials for AT&T, and they stuck with me. I was able to find a couple of them. I won't play them all for you. They're all stuck together here, so we'll stop for a minute when we go. But I wanted you to just see this, because it stayed with me. And it put me in the mindset that I'm sure some of you are in right now, because I can tell from the faces I'm getting. I've got some disbelievers in the room, and I like that. That's good. Well, we're still having trouble with sound. That's okay.
License. At a cash machine.
Nice picture.
You will. And the company that'll bring it to you, AT&T.
Your true voice.
Have you ever watched the movie you wanted to, the minute you wanted to? Learn special things.
That's all taken from jazz.
Know any questions? From faraway places.
Oakland?
So where did jazz come from?
Good question.
Or tucked your baby in. From a phone booth. You will. And the company that'll bring it to you, AT&T. Have you ever kept an eye on your home when you're not at home? Or gotten a phone call?
How was your day?
On your wrist. Beautiful. You will. And the company that'll bring it to you, AT&T.
The idea on its face is ridiculous. Why would anybody want one of these stupid little things in their homes when you can just go down to the telegraph office and they'll send your message to any big city in the country? Why would anybody want? Ridiculous. And I remember watching those commercials, and I think AT&T may have overstepped a little bit, because at that point you'd swear that AT&T was going to own the world in a little while. But that was really honestly before the internet. And the two ones I couldn't find, the ones that really stuck with me, was him saying, imagine sending a fax from the beach. You will. I was like, oh, come on, man. What else is on? And the last one was, imagine hanging a TV on the wall like a picture. And I was like, that's it. That's enough. I'm done. This is so dumb. So put yourself back in that and realize that sometimes things that sound really dumb have a niche or may be a possibility. Just allow yourself to think that for a sec. So let me tell you a little bit about what this presentation is not. I'm not predicting anything. I'm a veterinarian for 31 years. I'm also an anthrozoologist, so I think about human-animal interaction a lot. That's really what we'll talk about. A good bit about robotics here, but mainly about connection. This is not an attempt to scare anybody. I have scared people before, but I don't mean to. It's not an opportunity for you to throw food at me. So thankfully we're far enough away from the break and from lunch that I don't think there'll be any food thrown at me, and certainly not an endorsement. But it is an opportunity to think, particularly for you guys who are practitioners, or really anybody who's in any kind of branch of animal care. It's an opportunity to think about your level of client service and client experience, because I think that's going to become more and more important as we need our clients to bond to us even more. And then an opportunity to learn a little bit how we bond to each other. Humans are hyper bonders most of the time, and we are very good with each other, but we also bond not only to other living things, but man, we bond to non-living things all the time. I hope I can get you to believe that. And if not, leave here, find the closest car guy you can, ask him about your car, and then see if we don't bond to non-living things. I also wanted to point out that we have now crossed the line of the animal world being worth over $100 billion. Sadly, that is not veterinary expenditures. Veterinary expenditures is still a fairly small portion of that. But you know, each year when we look at the numbers, it always comes out the numbers of the amount of money that people spend on their dogs for Halloween. Yeah, it's bigger, over $30 billion now for one night for Halloween in the US. I know, everybody from non-US is looking at me like, what the hell? I know, it's a thing. So there's a lot of money in dog sweaters and hats and stuff. So we're still begging them to do a heartworm test, but the money is still there. But I point that out because we're not the only ones who know this. People who like to make money see a $100 billion industry and wonder if there is a slice they could get or even create a new channel. This industry seems to defy gravity. This is Forbes. With people treating their pets more and more like family members, the pet industry continues to see a rise in niche and premium products and services. This isn't really going away, and then we've taken a couple hits over the years, but boy, we really are pretty recession-proof in many ways. So what is AI? I know I would get in trouble with this being the last one to go, because I think everyone have to, if you give an AI presentation, you have to have these slides. It's like if you give a presentation about fleas, you got to have the flea life cycle, you just do. So anyway, I'll make short work of this because I think we know that these pretty well now, but AI is quite a difference, and I think we heard that from Matt too. AI is smart, AI can do a lot of things, but it does certainly have, thankfully, some guardrails and some limitations. AI likes things like facial recognition, and it likes things like, let me manage the local Amazon warehouse, or let me do stuff like that, let me play checkers with you, things like that. And it can learn more. It loves algorithms. The more we can get it to learn, it will, but it still needs to be fed a little bit. AGI, to my knowledge, is not in existence yet, unless in some weird lab or something, someone's created something. But this would be something that would be able to think like we do, that could go out and get information from different sources and put it together and have a thought about that. AI is reactive and limited. AGI is proactive. AGI could come to you with a new idea that it just thought of. So that's kind of what we're thinking. I bring that up really specifically just because I think thankfully, maybe one of the barriers to true pet replacement with a robotic pet or whatever you wish to call would really probably need some degree of AGI. They would need to have some degree of agency to be able to be bought as a real thing. I'm making that up, maybe not, but that's my thought. Unbounded, unlimited ability to learn. So there's another feeling of wonder and terror simultaneously. So that's Sophia. I'm sure most of the people in the room know Sophia. She is the first robotic citizen of Saudi Arabia, and some interesting videos of her. Well, this one I'll show you. I'm sure you've seen this before. This is Atlas, the older Atlas. There's a new one I bet you most of you guys have seen, much more leaner and even more human-like. But I still wanted to play this one just to make a point. So if you haven't seen it, it's fantastic.
Forgot my tools again.
I know there were some bloopers with this one too, but he got it right on this one. The reason I wanted to show this is to show how close even then, now this is I think a couple years older, maybe more, how smooth the movement is and really how pretty accurate is maybe a human with a heavy backpack. Particularly two moves. That one? Do that in your hotel room tonight, see how well you can do it. And then of course the one at the end here is beyond belief. ridiculous. So if you think that we can't create something
Such
that
a show-off.
that could move and smoothly and appear like a creature we wanted it to look like, I think we've already gotten there to some degree. And if that's just going to get better, and if that's an old video, you know, we're coming along. We've talked a lot about AI and in vet medicine over the past 2 days, which has been fantastic. Lots of cool stuff. I think it will continue to improve the things we've even talked about today, diagnostics, radiography. I was in the clinic, I don't know, maybe a year or so ago, 2 years ago, with my older dog Clancy. I bring him to a classmate of mine, and he said, you know what, why don't we do a chest film on him, just make sure everything's good. Sure, sounds good. And so, I still say film, sorry. And so we took a picture and he put it up on the screen, and he's like, oh, before you look at it, there's an AI portion to this now, and I've got a printout. You want to look at it? I'm like, well, let me look at this first. And I looked at it, I'm like, okay, let me see what you got. And I read what the AI read, and then I went, I have nothing to add. It was a very humbling experience. It was a basic, simple chest film, but if you haven't experienced that, it's quite interesting. We just talked about the possibility of exam room, I don't know, avatars, or how crazy can we start to think about, would there be an avatar or some sort of interface for someone in the waiting room that would be warm for them? Could they make it anybody they want? Could Keanu Reeves work in your front desk? I don't know. Could you have a couple rooms with, I know I'm pushing it here, but what if you had, they're like PAs or something that are digital, and the clients are interacting with them. Those guys are putting together treatment plans from what they've heard. You go in, review that, say, sounds good. The films are done, the evaluation of the lab work is done, and you come back and then finish it up. How many clients and customers could you see through there? It's a world, I know it's a world I just made up, but it still involves the veterinarian, it still involves the staff, but it would be an interesting place to be. So yeah, I mean, it's taken me a little bit to realize that someone like that, I think we've all seen this now, that is not a real person. That person doesn't exist and never did, is not even a human being. And yet, certainly your brain right now is telling you, that's a real person. And so that's the battle we're gonna have going forward with our own brains, our basic reptilian brains all the way up through our kind of caveman brains and our smart brains are all kind of conflicting with each other. And that is a way to do that. So we're gonna have to figure that one out. But I'm still sure there's a couple people who are still going, okay, all right, when do we get out of here? What is this guy talking about? Even, as I said, poor Henry Ford, when he was trying to get a loan in Michigan, from the bank heard that the horse is here to stay, the automobile is a fad, this is silliness. I've had several people tell me in the past couple of days, I love my dog so much, I couldn't even imagine not having a warm, loving, real dog. I understand that. I also understand this. That's a 1929 Model A. There's one in my driveway right now. I need help with the carburetor if anybody knows. But they didn't go away. They weren't fads, certainly by any means. The connection we have with living creatures in the natural world is very real and very needed, whether we know that or not. A lot of people, I speak a lot about the human-animal bond, and I say there is no such thing as the human-animal bond. There are millions of them. It's your individual connection with the living world. Maybe it's not a dog. Maybe it's something else. Maybe it's going for a walk in the wilderness. Maybe it's some other thing. And maybe here's another crazy one I'll blow your mind with. What if we could make robotic cats and dogs, we could make a robotic dragon or whatever the hell you want. Your kid wanted a little dragon to play with, I got one for you. I don't know. I will also say, if you're giving a presentation for maybe over 20, 30 minutes or so, randomly put in a picture of a cute puppy. Because your audience will get a little bit of an oxytocin squirt, and it's kind of like a mental sorbet. It just helps them kind of clear off a little bit. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about why I think the one thing that would probably be used pretty extensively in creating a pet alternative for some, and how effective that actually could be with our own brains. Starting with this guy, Konrad Lorenz. Anybody seeing recognitions here? Yeah. This guy was famous. He actually got the Nobel Prize for his work on imprinting. So did a lot there. Also aligned himself with the Nazi Party. So that's kind of get points off for that. But he later said he didn't like the Nazis. But I wanted to talk about neoteny. He was not the only one that came up with the idea of neoteny, but he tends to get the credit for it anyway. If you're not familiar with neoteny, it's going to sound ridiculous when I tell you about it. His thesis was, as humans, we're attracted to faces with large heads, very large eyes, and small noses. This is not news to some people. It does sound ridiculous if it's the first time you've heard it, though. However, when you start to look for it, it's bloody everywhere. If you look at poor Mickey Mouse, just Mickey Mouse and Steamboat Willie, remember that? Well, over the years, poor Mickey Mouse's head has gotten a lot bigger, his eyes have gotten gigantic, and his nose has gotten a little bit smaller. I think the scariest one, though, is, remember My Little Pony? What happened to My Little Pony? That's what happened to My Little Pony. That's the way I looked when I was little. I didn't have a My Little Pony, but I remember them. And now poor My Little Pony has been neotenized to the point where big heads, big eyes. Even Barbie has not survived the neotenization of the world. And certainly this is something that we recognize as a thing. We see people like these people oftentimes selling things huge in marketing because we know we look at them. We just do. And so they can sell stuff to us, or they can be in a movie that we will watch and look at a little bit longer. I know this for many reasons, but there's a really fascinating study that came out of the American Psychological Association a while back looking at little ones. I'm talking 2 to 3 months was one group and 6 to 8 months was the other. They showed these little guys who really aren't even verbal yet, a comparison of 2 pictures of people, a series of them. One of them was heavy on the neoteny, like the pictures I just showed you. A normal human being, but just a more attractive human being than another. And they measured the time, how long the little babies stared at each one of these images. And it was considerably longer for them to look at the more attractive face. So this doesn't seem to be something that develops over time. It seems to be something we are born with or have developed over time to be born with, but it's a part of us. It's a big part of us. I don't know if it's really has any use, but it is something that we like. If you don't believe me, the next time you're at the supermarket in the cereal aisle, just walk down and you will see these grotesque faces that are all great examples of neoteny. Who else, or what else can you think of that has big heads and big eyes? I'll help you cheat. Puppies do. Puppies at about 6 weeks of age, or 8 weeks, about the time they're weaned. Amazingly, I think a lot of mother dogs actually know this. There's a cool study that Clive Wynne did with some of his students down in the islands, because they got to go down in the islands, and looking at kind of the street dogs there. And those moms know intuitively. He did a separate study looking at when are puppies the cutest, and looking at when they're almost brand new, at weaning, and then, I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 months. And consistently, we people chose that age, for reasons now that you know. And those are also the times that those mother dogs will pick those little babies up and plop them in front of people's homes because they know the likelihood of them being at least cared for in some way is the best. That's fantastic. Who else has big heads and big eyes? Kids. Man, okay. So now we're getting real deep in our brains. And even the non-children people in the room will say, yeah, but that's not what it is. But it may be. It may be that part of our brain that's connected in there. And I know that's kind of a harsh quote, that maybe this whole human-animal bond thing is just, I know, at the end of the day, I can be a little harsh. But I don't know. We've said it multiple times, pet parents, they're like my kids. And because the wiring that's touched upon is the same, and man, I'll show you here in a minute or two, it's deep in our brains. It is real deep. And I'm talking about this because, again, I want you to see that we are manipulable. And we are, again, hyperbonders. And when the right buttons are pressed on us, we will go, whoop. Now, there's 2 different things that are happening. One is, I'll talk about oxytocin in a sec here, but when you can tell someone has got a little squirt of oxytocin in their brain because they make a specific sound. And it sounds like, oh. That's the oxytocin dribbling out of your mouth. Like, oh. You know you're being affected by neoteny, at least the English speakers, because there's one word that we use almost consistently 100% of the time. Cute. oh, he's just so cute. Oh, that's so cute. And that's the combination. That's oxytocin and oh, so cute. That's what's happening in the really deep regions of your brain. And it feels good. It's a nice release. But when I say deep parts of your brain, I mean deep. We're talking limbic brain stuff. This part of our brains is older than time almost. This part of our brain doesn't have the capacity for speech. That's why when you experience emotions, someone asks you, how much do you love your daughter or your son or something, you go like, there aren't words. You reach down to that part of your brain, there's nothing there. We're talking about the nucleus accumbens with this part, where that's what lights up when you are experiencing neoteny. This is also the same part of the brain that's oftentimes affected by addiction, like heroin and methamphetamine. So the next time you have someone freak out in the exam room on you, know that you're talking about real old caveman brain stuff here, and their connection is very, very deep, as is ours to our own. I mentioned this guy a little bit ago here. This is on every vet truck in the world and every animal hospital in the world. And this is oxytocin. When I was in vet school, Kim and I were in vet school, we learned that oxytocin caused milk letdown and uterine contraction. And if we said that in 1994, you 100%. Now, maybe half off. Because it does so much more. In the past 30-some years, we've learned so much about oxytocin and bonding and trust and all that good stuff, mainly because it's calming your amygdala, which is the part of your brain that's always looking for stress and threat. And, oxytocin seems to be able to help that. It's another secondary effect of looking at some creature that has a neotenized face. So let's get back to this. What if you had the best pet ever, remember the best dog you ever had, and he or she was still with you? And they were basically free. I mean, who knows what they would cost initially, but then there'd be no veterinary care, no feeding, they'd never poop, they'd never vomit. If you go on vacation, you just put them in the closet, but you can still sleep next to you and be nice and warm, and of course they wouldn't die, and that's the crappiest part of the whole thing. Okay, all right, I get it. Yeah, but we're veterinarians. I mean, if you think people really get rid of their dogs or their pets, it's like, I don't know. Crazy things have happened. Let me introduce you to some people who said the same thing that's happening in your brain right now. Wagon wheel makers. Talk to a wagon wheel maker in 1850 and say, you know what, you're probably not going to have a job in 100 years. He's going to be like, oh, really? Okay. Yeah, well, now I think it's the Amish. I think Jay Leno has a guy who makes them. That was completely unfathomable to someone at that point. Even blacksmiths. We came from blacksmiths, right? They were kind of veterinarians before the veterinarians were a thing. They were the truck mechanics of their time. And they're still around, but time changed a lot on them. There's no chance that the iPhone is going to get significant market share. No chance. That was 2007 from the CEO of Microsoft. So again, listen to the words in your head when you start to wonder about this, because we've kind of been here before. A couple more examples. Probably been a while since you used a travel agent to book a trip. Maybe for a big, like, weird one or something, but most of the time, travel agent offices are either gone or empty. And then there's the sad example of Blockbuster. I will share something with you that I still have my Blockbuster card. This is really mine. It was a big part of our lives. It was a huge part of life. If someone said, oh, Blockbuster's going to go away, you're like, oh, sure, man, sounds good. Nope. Blockbuster got kind of fat and happy, and it's a sad story. They felt they had so many subscriptions, they just had you. And you can imagine the board meetings when people would say, yeah, but there's this other company, I don't know, man, they can send the DVD to the people, and then they send it back, and Blockbuster going, oh, again, like the wagon wheel, sure, okay, sounds good. They can just drive right to our store and they get it instantly. Why? Well, who cares about that? Well, but they're also talking about maybe someday they could actually beam the movie right to your house. Okay, thanks for coming. Let's continue with the meeting. They didn't listen, and they got Blockbustered. And I think it's just the worry about not paying attention and resting on your laurels. So, for real? Is this really what we're talking about? This still seems kind of strange. Are you for real right now? Well, I am, because we're not talking about the future. We're talking about stuff that's already going on. This guy was seen going into Fendi in New York with his robotic dog now almost 3 years ago. I've never been to Fendi, but I think you have to make an appointment to go in there. And I don't think you just go in there and browse. I think you go get stuff that's already been made for you. And speaking of that, so the dog begged and talked to lots of people most interested. The dog got his special, I think I read it somewhere, I think it was like $2,500 little jacket. And they made a big deal about it, and then they left. So now I don't know. I know you're thinking like, okay, that's just a crazy weirdo with some weird toy that he had. And maybe it is, but maybe it's not. And there's something happening here. And I wanted to show you another little video, speaking of that little kind of creature, because since many veterinarians in the room, I wanted to show you this about how these little guys are learning. This won't be news to some of you, but I thought it was pretty cool because, again, my vet brain, my eyes, see a newborn calf or a newborn foal learning. So that's, you don't want to smash into the wall, and when you're first born you do, and you trip over crap, and you slip on the ice. And it's embarrassing because you're just learning how to use your legs. But you learn. And every mistake, and every step, and everything that you do, you learn a little bit more from. You have great difficulty on the gravel. It's embarrassing, but you learn. And sometimes you just make a fool of yourself. But next time, you got it. Next time you're on the gravel in the horrible wind, you got it. And this poor soul looks like he blew his cruciate or something, but he's still going. So still trying to figure out how to run fast and avoid the wall. But the speed is increasing. And honestly, the appearance to a dog is starting to emerge. And the complexity of movement is increasing. And this is an old video. And now we don't crash into the wall. So pretty cool. This quote you may recognize. How does anyone even know something they want? How does someone know that they want something they haven't even seen? Do you remember the TRS-80? Am I the only one in the room that remembers? No, I'm not. We used to call it the Trash 80. It was from Radio Shack. And it was so cool, everybody wanted to have one. I don't know why. It was a typewriter and a TV. It was, but it obviously kind of caught on. And so did things like having a mouse. Remember the first time you heard that word? Like, what are you talking about, mouse? That was the first mouse. And it was Steve Jobs who, so when they said, you're dumb. No one's going to want their own computer in their house, seriously, he had the knowledge. A little bit on literature. Is there any information on this? Particularly, could these guys be used as assisted animal therapy? Where else could we use these? I think there are lots of cool options. I had someone say, you could get a biomimetic robotic dog as a companion for a real dog. There are lots of other niches besides replacement, which is kind of an ugly word, I'll give you. The studies right now are difficult to really evaluate. There are more and more of them, but they're studying something that doesn't honestly exist yet. So that's, I think, where we start to fall down. This was looking at people in nursing homes and evaluating their abilities in cognitive status and daily activities and all that stuff, comparing a real dog, someone bringing in a real dog and someone bringing in a robot dog. Again, that's a little tough. It's maybe not totally fair to the robot dog. But honestly, the numbers were interesting. The robot dog didn't do as bad as people thought, the seal robot, sorry, the robot seal. And not surprisingly, as they interacted with people with more severe deficits and difficulties, they engaged even a little bit more because to them it seemed a little bit more real. Nothing surprising there. And honestly, nothing really surprising either that long-term in the study, they really didn't find any measurable benefits for either the fake or the real therapy animals. And unfortunately, if you really look at the data, there are some studies that show good effects with this, and there are lots of studies that show none. And it's probably the complexity of people and the complexity of animals and all the other stuff, but not a lot of great data there. So we're not headed into replacement pets just yet. There's lots of things if you look for do a literature search, there are lots of things, but this one I liked the most because it was looking at children. Think about if you're a 4 or 5-year-old now, your life is going to be interacting with robots of some kind, something, you're going to grow up with that. So it's interesting to start to access the thoughts of children. And also because they're so pure in their empathy and their love. So this was looking at empathy for non-living entities. Do they ascribe mental lives to non-living things? I know they do. We were talking about the hamper last night, and how many times have you named some weird little thing in your house? And we do it from the time we grow up. But this was interesting. So it was 126 children, pretty good span of age there, looking at 6 different things. So an actual child, a real small little dog, a humanoid robot, I'll show you a picture in a minute, not very believable, but enough, a little animal robot, and then a stuffed animal, and then like an Amazon box. So that's a pretty good range of stuff. So here's what we had, an actual little girl, live little things, all the way down to kind of nothing. And I will give you that the little robot dinosaur is not very believable, but that's what they use. Again, study from a little bit ago. And then the questions came, would it be okay to torture, fill in blank, the little girl, the Amazon box? What are your feelings on those? Would it be okay to hurt or to give away, fill in blank? And so looking at moral concerns, so physical harm, would it be okay to hurt the little person, the little girl or the dog? Definitely those two wind up at the very top, 10 out of 10, not cool with the dog or the child. But if you look, you're still at about 8.5 to 9, including that little weird dinosaur thing and the little humanoid one. That's interesting, even all the way out to 10 years. Now then you get into the little toy and certainly the box, there's nothing there. But you're still at about, in those 8s and 9s with everybody. So even though it was clear they knew that there was not an actual living thing, they did ascribe some degree of a mental life to it, and they did not want to see it hurt. So we do even that early on, and even when it looks silly, we still do make kind of a connection to it. Again, back to car guys. If their car's making horrible noises or they get a dent, it's like, ow, oh, she's hurt. We do that. We do that. The giveaway, not so much. So if I have to give away, fill in blank, that dropped off a little bit. But I thought that was an interesting way to look at things. I'll get to a little bit more on IBO here. This whole video I had that we'll skip in the interest of time. But IBO is kind of the current most common one. I asked Sony if I could have one as a demonstration, and they wrote me a very short email back. But they are pretty cool. They close their eyes, they run around, they play with toys, they'll play with you, they go to sleep on their own. They have trouble the first couple of nights sleeping the whole night, so you have to help them through. There's an entire population or community of like food bowls and online, what do you feed your IBO, and what's her name, and there's just a whole big thing about this. Oh, sorry. We're gonna pass that. I'll come right back to IBO though. But along those lines, I wanted to just give this quote from the CEO of iRobot. He said when they first came out with the Roomba, he would listen into customer calls now and then, just make sure everything was okay. And a lady called and said, my Roomba's motor's all messed up. What do I do? And he got on the line and said, don't worry about it. Just send it back to us. We'll send you another one. And the lady was like, no, I'm not sending back Rosie, which I appreciate the Rosie the Robot reference. And since then, I've learned, as he said here, where is it the number? I forget. I think it was 80% of people who have Roombas name them. So we do connect. And here's a study of people with disabilities and using IBO. This one was a little bit disappointing. Not shocking. It was done in Germany. They said maybe it kind of helped, but it needs work. It's not right. And that makes sense. You see the IBO, it's literally a plastic little thing. What I showed you, though, was the second generation of IBO. IBO was a first generation and was very popular in Japan. I don't think so much in North America. Sony said, meh, we're going to discontinue support to AIBO, and that's that. Which meant that slowly, every AIBO in Japan died. Which is sad in itself, but people took it very seriously, and there were mass funerals. Still want to believe that we don't bond to non-living things? Mass funerals for these guys in temples. And there's another little cottage industry that came up with trying to get some of these guys back alive again. It didn't work very well. This guy was one of the people, I think, from one of those companies. And his quote was, saying goodbye to an AIBO isn't about getting rid of it or scrapping it. It's about reuniting AIBO's soul with the owner one last time before it departs. So we do. We bond very deeply to non-living things. Even odd-looking things like that. Imagine if someone could create something that even started to approach a dog. And again, no one's coming to your house to take your dog away and give you a robot, but again, remember those things I said in the beginning, or are there populations of people who would love to have pets and can't? Is there a niche there? I don't think we talked about the uncanny valley at all the past 2 days, so I thought I'd mention it. I think most of you guys are familiar with that. It's basically how humans love to bond. Oh, this is cool. As you move across the human likeness towards 100%, the affinity gets higher and higher. This is the coolest thing. I love this. And then all of a sudden it gets really creepy and I'm out. I don't know. This is weird. Like a corpse or a zombie. Nope. But if you keep pushing, it comes back up again because then you're really at a regular, actual human. I don't know. I wonder what will happen to the uncanny valley as we continue to develop this. So in my last few minutes, I wanted to just let Ebenezer Scrooge ask that question to the ghost. If I've satisfactorily freaked you out a little bit, or at least given you some things to think about on the plane ride home, are these shadows of things that will be, or shadows of things that may be? And I think they certainly are maybe. We still have the control, and I think I've been glad to hear that theme multiple times. This is something that either can be a friend or an enemy, and we're far enough out yet that I think that's, a friendship or use relationship is the way to go. The Titanic didn't turn from the iceberg soon enough, but the iceberg's still far away, and we're smart people, and we can do this. And there's a couple things that we can do from the veterinary point of view, particularly in the clinic. And they're the basics, but you got to do them. So the basics are animal handling, for one thing. If you're not a fear-free person, there's lots of other options, but just being aware there and having your staff become more aware. You scruff and stretch a cat in front of a client, or really at all, that's not something that you're probably going to see again. There's lots of different ways to learn and continue to work on that. One of the biggest things I talk about frequently is communication. Communication skills, particularly empathy. Man, if you are known as the empathetic veterinarian or your whole staff, this is the place I want to be, what you're doing is prepping the market, basically, like we say in industry. If there's some threat coming to your industry, start talking to people about it and tell them how cool things are right now, how you'd never want that other thing. Up the bar, think about your client experience. I will tell you a quick story about this picture, because that's Clancy. And we just lost Clancy in November. And he is a special guy. And I got him the day he was to be euthanized. And he had, as you can see, he had a wound that the surgeons in the room would probably even be like, ugh. He had open, dry bone, exposed bone, both laterally and medially. His foot was cold and swollen. You could clip his nails and he didn't bleed. And I adopted him. And I brought him in to a nearby clinic, and I'm like, I think we should probably put some honey on that and wrap it up. I don't know. He wound up being my Dexdomitor safety study dog, and we sedated him with Dexdomitor 17 days in a row, and with systemic antibiotics and honey, big fan of honey. Dang if we didn't save his leg. But I brought him in very frequently, and because I travel a lot for work, the story went that I brought him in for multiple rebandaging. I was going to be gone for 3 or 4 days. And brought him in the clinic, and they're right near the airport. I was on my way to the airport, and finished up, see you, Clancy, big old boy. And I was out the door of the clinic, and they said, oh, before you go, do you want Clancy to get story time? And I was like, The what now? I got the store. There's like, it's $4. I'm like, sure, story time, whatever. 2 days later, I'm in a room like this in Dallas, and I got this picture on my phone. Look at his face. He's so happy. He's being read the bedtime story book for dogs, which you can get on Amazon, and it has lots of words in there like go outside and food and go for a ride. Oh my God. And I immediately became the marketing department for Tampa Vet Animal Hospital, showed everybody in the room, put it on Facebook, the whole thing. Amazing. I worked so hard for them that day, and I just did it again years later. So that kind of stuff is fantastic. Take pictures of these guys as they're recovering, or give them a little recovery buddy. Send home a stuffed animal for a worried child to be with. Lots and lots of things that you can do. So I'll finish up. Where is this all going? No one in the room knows. That's why it's right now we're all specialists, which is kind of a fun place to be. I'm hoping that's not a cat in the future. I don't know what the hell that is. But the future will be interesting as we develop. I'm an aviation nerd, and I am an official flight simulator pilot, which means nothing. But I've been... I always tell the pilot when I get on, I'm back in 2123C if you need me. But in the early days of my flight simulator, it was ridiculous. And now 2020, it's unbelievable. And now it's even gotten better from 2025. So things change, really, whether we want them to or not. We can enjoy it. We can be with it, and we can learn with it. And we can not rest on our laurels and not be fat and happy. And we can use this and to make our lives better and our patient care better. And we can even have fun with it. The picture that was my picture from the conference, that's not me. I don't know who that is. I don't have that jacket. There was no photographer. It never got done. But AI also then made me look like George Clooney. I don't know how that happened. So AI is okay. I'm kind of okay with AI. And then I think somewhere in there, when I was asking it for interpretation, I said something about flying or a pilot, and it did that. So I don't know. I don't know what that is. It's just a funny way to end a presentation. So be of good cheer. I think it's going to be okay, but I think there is a niche somewhere. Know that we, as our brains, are certainly ready and willing to connect with things that are not alive, but it may just be a good thing for our profession. We just need to keep our eye up and keep our knees bent. So thank you guys so much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Flynn. It's very thought-provoking.
I know.
Photos and presentation.
I think about it a lot.
One of the questions that I had that was echoed by somebody on Slido was, we certainly have these cuter robots, right? But not all of them are going to be like WALL-E and Baymax and some of the ones that you showed. But not all of them are going to be like Terminator and RoboCop and some of these terrifying militarized robot dogs either. So, but people are still bonding to the ones that are more neutral, like Spot, somebody mentioned.
Yeah.
And so what other factors other than neoteny can explain that human affinity to a machine that doesn't feature the neoteny sort of characteristics?
That's a good question. I don't know if there's a distinct answer for that. I thought about that as well. I think if you looked at the number of people who would connect to a neotenized robot, if I want to use that term, is this, and the people that would connect to something not is smaller, but it's still there. And I think back to a couple of videos you can dig around on YouTube. There are videos of people walking the ones I showed you, like in Fendi, these kind of robot dogs down the street and interacting with real dogs. And that's to me, that's the gold standard. Some dogs have barked their heads off, they're losing their minds. Other dogs are around on his butt trying to smell him and wagging his tail and having a good time. So there's something in our brains, our mammalian brains or something, that recognize the four legs, the body, there's moving around. To me, it's weird looking, but I think I recognize that as something that I like. And I think that's kind of still in our, when we see them move, and it's particularly if they move even close to normal, we're like, that's almost like a dog. And I think even the dogs go through that too. So I think it's just a basic pattern recognition in our mammalian brains.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Another thing that I think was interesting about the child empathy experiment that you were describing, and one thing that occurred to me and some other people as well, is that how do you differentiate the children not wanting the object to be hurt versus watching somebody actually want to hurt it, which might be more disturbing to them.
Yeah, you mean just the fact asking the question?
Yeah, or you know, just thinking about witnessing it, or you know, something like that. Like, why would somebody want to stomp on a box? Like, that's weird and unsettling.
I agree. I think that there's some secondary traumatic stress there that definitely would occur. Yeah, I think that's part of the challenge. I mean, we're talking about 4-year-olds in that study too, up to 10. So I think there's definitely a challenge there. But I think it's, even with that, there's still an assigning of mental life or some sort of agency to that thing. So, and maybe children overdo that, but probably not. They probably are clearer than we are.
All right. Another question was, you know, assuming a future where robotic pets become more commonplace, do you foresee that being something that's more for the upper class, or do you think it's something for the middle and lower classes, or do you think that it's more diverse than that?
Well, that's a good one. I'll say something you're not supposed to say from the stage. I don't know. But I think my thoughts there could go either way, because you could see a world where, you know, the robot is particularly a very, very cool robotic pet, and who knows, I mean, it's $30,000 or something. And I'm sitting with my Ferrari and my robotic pet, and I'm cool. Or it could be that the very wealthy have, well, we have an alive dog, we have a real dog, and that because we're very wealthy. And maybe middle class to lower class, that's a place, that's a way they can finally have a dog that their kids love. It's good enough. We got a dog. There's no veterinary cost anymore. We just couldn't do it with our last dog. We had to put him to sleep because he got his leg broken or whatever. This one we can have forever. He was a little expensive to buy in the beginning, but now we can have him forever. And the live dogs are just going to have to be for the ultra rich. I don't know. I could see that going either way.
Yeah, that's a really good point. All right. I don't see any other questions. Thank you so much, Dr. Flynn.
Thanks, Ken.